everyone, welcome back to my channel, ClaudiaHendersonCreations, and in today's video I am gonna show you one of the Stampin' Up kit collection boxes, and this one is the one with the watercolor pencil. So you might have seen this and might have asked yourself, well, do I really need another set of pencils? Do I really need to color in? Or you might even ask, how does this work? So I will show you in today's video a little bit more how this watercolor pencil system works, how easy it is, and how great it is to use for other projects beside these cards that it comes in. So the first thing I like to show you is this watercolor brush, and this one actually you can unscrew, fill with water, and then screw the lid back on. And then you have a tank full of water. When you squeeze, water comes out and it cleans the brush, it wets the brush, it does a lot of things, and I will show you in a second how this works. In this set also you get a set of 8 different watercolor pencils in a really nice variety of colors, and I show you what you can do with those beside these individual colors. You can mix them actually too. And then you have this really cute book that has pre-printed watercolor paper, and you get 2 of each that you can color in. At the end there are also 2 empty ones, and we're gonna work with this one. There is an instruction sheet in here, but I have to say, if you never worked with these pencils, it's kind of hard to understand how great they are and all the things you can do with them. So I'm gonna go a little bit more into detail to show you how this works. But for now, let me move my camera a little bit closer. So I know that I'm in the frame when I show you a few things here. Let me put this down. Okay. It's always hard when you take your camera and put it upside down and you don't really see what is going on. So this little booklet, like I said, is all watercolor paper, and it is not your regular watercolor paper that you might buy in the store. Let me show you what I mean by that. So Stampin' Up has separate watercolor sheets. There are 10 in one of these packages, and they're really nice. They're not too rough, because watercolor paper usually has a very rough texture on one side and a smoother one on the other. But so this is the Stampin' Up paper, so really rough on one side, a little bit smoother on the other. But as you can see, it is not bright white. It has a little cream color to it. This is a piece that I buy usually here at my local Michael's. Canson watercolor paper. It is thicker. It is a little bit wider than this one here, but it's got the same thing. So it's got a little bit bumpy surface on one side, a smoother on the other. And compared to the Stampin' Up one, you can see how white this one is. So there are just a couple of differences. Why this is so bumpy? Well, watercolor paper is thicker simply because we're gonna add usually a lot of water to it, and that paper needs to sustain the water amount that we put on there. If you would put a lot of water on your regular cardstock, you know how it seeps in and then all of a sudden it kind of disintegrates your paper, especially when you go over and over with a brush or color. So watercolor paper tends to allow you to do a lot more layers of water on it before it starts to say I'm done. But for now we're gonna work with this one just to give you an idea how this works, and in a later video I will show you how you can actually use your regular cardstock and these colors to color in. So this is especially great when you have stamped images that you would like to give a little bit of a color, or you know, you just want a little bit of extra shading on things, and you don't need a lot of markers, you don't need alcohol markers. These pencils are really great for that, and you can get away with watercolor pencils and stamped images by just using what you have at home, and I will show you that. All right, but for now we have our watercolor pencils, and they can be used as regular pencils. They're nothing else than really a regular pencil, with the addition that when you add water to those, the pigments will kind of like move together, so you really get a smooth imprint. While when you have pencils, sometimes you see the little streaks on the paper, so this will not happen when you add water to those. But how do we know how they react? And if you never tried those, what I have done, I just took one of those empty pieces that are here in the back. I tore it out, and then I put little squares on here. And all I did was I put the color names on top here that we have. So we have 8 different pencils. And this is what I'm gonna use right now for showing you a little bit how these pencils work and how the color moves when you add water to them. Now, the nice thing about these is, yes, you can fill them with water, and that's all the water you need, really. I love that, and at the beginning when they're new, that works great. But I have found that over time, these leak. So when you're coloring, all of a sudden there's a lot of water coming out, and in some cases you don't need a lot of water, so it's hard to control. It is nice for just cleaning the brush, doing things like this, but I tend to not fill this tank with water. Instead, I just have a little jar with water that I'm gonna put on my desk, and I just dip my brush in there. It's the same principle. So we're still gonna use this brush, just not with the water on the inside. I also just grab a little paper towel for dabbing off. And then we have our pencils. Now, like every other coloring pencil, you want to be gentle with them. Don't toss them around. Don't, you know, let them fall on your hard surface. What will happen is that the inside, the lead on the inside will break. And then you have the issue that when you sharpen them, all of a sudden your tip constantly breaks off. And that's just, you know, part of having a pencil. So here we have Coastal Cabana, and that's the color I'm gonna use first. And to give you an idea how they work, I want you to try a couple of things. The first thing is we're gonna use decent pressure, and we just put a little bit of color down. And that would be like you using a regular pencil. The next one, I would like you to do a little bit in the corner here, and we're not filling everything out, just a little bit. And then we're gonna do the same with the next one, which is this garden green. I'm just doing a couple of these, and they're very soft. Some watercolor pencils sometimes have the tendency to have a little bit harsher line, and you can tell that by adding water to it. And when you see that the line doesn't disappear, you know that this one is a little bit harsher. So when you're adding this to your paper, you just don't want to add too big of a pressure on them, and try to avoid those lines. But these ones here are all very smooth. They are really, really nice. And then we do one like halfway. And this is just so you can see what the color looks like when we add water to it, but you can also see how it changes from dark to light and how it reacts to the water that we put in. Now let's try something else here. And I try to stay inside my little squares, and you can make them bigger or smaller just as you want. So the next thing I do is just dip my brush in here and wipe it off to make sure there's nothing under. And usually I test it on the back of my hand, and I can feel there's still a little bit of water on there, which is fine. And then all you do is you start on the back here, and you just use your brush and even the color out. And you can see here how the color kind of blends together. And we do the second one here too. So where we add the color, it gets really dark, and then I'm just using the water to draw it out so we get a lighter hue on top here. And I'm just gonna show this a little bit. I hope you can see this in the camera, how the lines all of a sudden disappear. So here you can see this is what it looked before, and then adding the water, it really makes it move. And I can tell here, so the lines are not disappearing as much as they normally would. So we have to be a little bit careful. And I can already tell when I put water on here. So sometimes this paper absorbs the water pretty quickly. And that is good to know, because when we're coloring later, that means we might not want to use a ton of water on our brush, because this is, like I said, compared to other watercolor paper that I have, this is way thinner and it is way smoother. So it's a mixture between cardstock and watercolor, it looks like. So it behaves a little bit more hesitant, and we want to make sure that we don't soak it and then ruin the paper and our little flowers and stuff that we move in. So here you can tell this green has a harder time moving, and I put a lot of water on here, but it doesn't disappear as good as the first one does. And that's what I mean by just getting a feeling for your pencils. You can see here, you still can see the streaks, and I'm not gonna go over with more water because it's gonna thin out the paper too much. Let's try that corner here that we did, and I'm not gonna use as much water as I did at the beginning. I'm still gonna start in the back, and you can see how different this reacts to the first one, because the first one really blended nicely. This one has a harder time here to blend. So that tells me, okay, when I'm using the green, I have to use a light hand, and I might have to color in a little bit more than I want to. While with this one, I could get away with coloring in just a little bit and then pull it out with my water pencil. Water brush, not pencil. And this one I have to work a little bit harder, but there are ways to smoothen out this edge. But this is why I like to do a swap first, just to get a feeling for this. See this one here? How this one reacts with the water right away, smooth out nicely. Totally different than this green one. This behaves more like normal watercolors, and we do the same here. And you can see how you can move this color around, and you just pick it up from the back here where we had the corner colored in, and then pull it all the way to the edge. So it gets lighter, but it's also, this transition here is not to be seen. So here's a little bit comparison to, this is what it looked like when we put it on the paper, and this is what it looks like when we add water to it. Now let's try the other colors and see how they work. So the next one is Berry Burst, which is this one here. And I'm doing the same thing, so I'm just gonna put a little bit color here. And then here we do the entire corner. And that's another thing with watercolor pencils. You don't have to color in the entire image normally. you can leave it and then just pull the color out with the water, which gives you automatic shading on your images. So remember, I don't know if you ever worked with markers, like alcohol markers. You usually have different shades of one color. So you start with a lighter one and then this medium and a dark, or vice versa. And it just gives you a gradiated shade. But this is sometimes tricky with watercolor pencils. It's way easier to do. Okay, and we're gonna put one down here. So let's do another 3. Next one is red. And I like to do this with anything. So even if you have alcohol markers, I always like to do a little swap, so I know what the color looks like once it's applied on paper. And I have watercolor pencils from different companies for many, you know, over the years you collect a whole bunch, and I did a little swap on some leftover paper and just put a number behind so I know exactly what it looks like, because sometimes this color tone here does not correspond with the color you actually get when you put the pencil on the paper. So let's try a little triangle here and see what happens. And then we do a little bit here. All right, and again, just cleaning up my brush. And this one, I'm not using a ton of water really, because the paper seems to really absorb it quickly, and that's not a good thing. So here, this one flows really nicely too. As you can see, it gets everything covered, and I assume that we will have the same result with this one here. And as you can see here, same thing. There is not really a transition. We can smooth it out nicely. So this works perfectly too. Let's go to the red. Yeah, that red is moving also very well once we add water to it. Let's try the corner here. That works well too. And you see when I activate it, sometimes when you have these harsh lines, I just go over with the brush a few times to smoothen it out a little bit more. But this one here really didn't want to move a lot, so we have to be careful with that one. And it might be that one of your sets, the green works perfectly, but there's another color that gives you a little bit of a hard time. It's good to know when you do this here, so you can avoid frustration when you're coloring this in. And it's not a big deal, but we just have to treat that one color a little bit different. So this one is a really light pink, and as you can see here, we have that smoothes out nicely too, but it's a very light one when you blend it out. And remember, this is how much color I put down, so it really lightens up quite a bit. All right, 2 more to go. Let's do the pumpkin pie first and see what this is doing. And again, I'm just going over it, and this moves nice too. As you can see here, once activate, how it smoothens out any lines and anything. So for the yellow, make sure that my brush is clean. And we try this one here, and this one too smooths out really nice, and so does the big square. So, oops, got a little drip of water there. So this tells me already here we have quite a few of differences. So as you can see, everything works great. This is, that could be the piece of paper, because I noticed when I put it down here on this part, it was absorbing the water really quickly. But this one is a little bit tricky, so we have to be careful. Everything else smooth out really nice. And I know here's a little bit of a line, but we can always go in there once it's dry. So if you're not satisfied with any of your coloring at one point in time, wait till it is dry and then go back in, either with a little bit more color, I show you later how this works, or with just plain water, and then try to smoothen out the lines. Because if you do this while it's still super wet, even this paper, especially this one here, will break down. Okay, so here we have our first swap. Now, what can we do with these things? So you might say, hey, but I'm limited to all these colors. How can I get a couple of different colors? Well, remember, now we have to do a little bit color theory. When we had yellow in the old days, and we have blue, and actually we only have this cabana blue here, but we can try this, and I'm putting this right next to it. And then we just have to take our brush, and I have the numbers of the colors up here, so I'm just putting my numbers down. That way later I know which two I mixed. What else can we do? We can maybe do get a little bit different. The pink. Maybe we put a little bit orange here and create a different color. So this is 15 and 3. Now what happens if we add, and remember this is the green that was giving us a little bit of a trouble. So I'm gonna go really light here, try not to push too hard. And we will see what we get with this one. So that's 3 and 19. We can also use this one here with the purple. And that is 25 and 30. And then what can we do with the red? Let's try this one. So you can make your own color combinations here if you want to. And so brown is usually the result of putting all colors together, but there's still different hues of brown. So let's put in a little bit of the pumpkin pie and see what we will get with this one. And then we have the green. Now naturally I put a lot of pressure down on this one, but let's do the 19 and the daffodil light. So put some yellow on here. And then last but not least, we have Coastal Cabana, and we're mixing this. Let's try the red and see what color we get at the end with this one. So you can just play around, practice, and get yourself some different color combinations. And I'm starting over here, so watch this happening. So what happens if we add yellow and the Coastal Cabana together? We are getting a green. Can you see that? So this is what happens when you put these two colors together. And I know if you have a little bit color theory from school maybe still that you remember, So primary colors, yellow, red, and blue. And from those three, you can actually mix everything you need. So here we go. We have a little bit of a different green tone here. So let's go over to the next one. We had orange and green. And what will we get? So naturally this is not a lot of green because I was very light, because it's got a hard time mixing and dissolving. But it gives us a little bit more of a brownish orange. Then we have pink and orange. And you can see those two blend together pretty nicely. So this is more like a coral. Then we have these two, which just will be a more magenta type. Pretty pink, pretty purple. And we're just mixing them here. Then we had Berry Burst and Coastal Cabana. Now that's gonna be an interesting mixture. So while the last one was red and Berry Burst, so this is more a warm tone. When we mix these two together, it's more of a purple. It gets a little bit more in the blue, on the blue side. Okay, now brown and our orange. Let's see what we get out of this one. So this one actually gives us a little bit lighter brown. See, it's got more like a burnt sienna type. So much lighter than this one here was. Green and the yellow. Well, we got this combination, but again, see where I really used the green and rubbed it in the paper, it's not moving. So be sure, if yours is doing the same thing, any color that doesn't move well, to use a very light hand when you do these mixtures. And I can show you later another trick how we can fix this if we need to. So and here's one more tropical one. So this one also moves together. Like I said, this is behaving a little bit slow too, but everything else works great. So here you have another swap. So lots of different color combinations you can get out of this, or shading when you're trying to achieve, you know, a little bit extra shading on your flowers. So this is what I would say, just play around, use one of these extra papers and just give it a try. But this is very important to understand what your color looks like and how it is behaving when you're coloring in. So now what we do when we have our papers here already pre-printed, if we wanted to color them in. Now these are, I would say, magnolia flowers, and they're often white. They can be a pretty white pink up to a really deep berry tone. I have one in the yard that's actually yellow, so my first one I'm gonna color in, and I'm gonna do the yellow. And as we tested out here, this one flows really nicely. So what I'm gonna do on the bottom here, where it is usually darker and underneath the leaf, I'm gonna put my color down. I'm not coloring in the entire thing. And Stampin' Up! Already gave you some lines here. The designer gave you some ideas where the shading is gonna be of the leaf. So we're just following these shades here for now. So I'm just gonna color these in. Wherever there is something behind, it's usually a little bit darker. Down here it's really dark. Here is more color. This one is pretty light, but this one is shaded, so we're gonna put a little bit dark color on here. And I know this looks funky when you look at it, but we will all smooth this out later. Okay, here we have a little bit. This one is in the back too. So how do we know where to shade? So usually when you have an object and the light hits it, the top of it is lighter while the bottom is in the shade, it's darker. So when I'm looking at leaves, I just look something that is tucked behind, like here, so the tip might be really light, but down here it's getting darker. And this is just something you have to practice and think about. But like I said, if you never have done this before, the easiest way is just follow these lines that our designer gave us here. Okay, now the next thing is we have a brown here, so we can use actually this brown for the little stem here. And what I like to do is this one here is a little bit darker, and then I'm just gonna go on the side of the branch here. I'm not coloring it all in. And then here on the bottom, and down here it's usually darker, so we're just adding a little bit of color only, and might as well do this branch completely here. And when you look in nature, not everything in nature is one cohesive color. There's always light and dark and shades and whites. So you don't have to color everything in to make it more vibrant, more lively. When you look at the display here, what they show you here, see how the tip is always white, then there is a little bit of a lighter color, and then the dark one is really here on the bottom. So I think that's, you know, how you maybe just want to keep this in mind to color it in this way. Okay, and while we're at it, we're still gonna use the yellow here for the little buds that are coming out. It's darker here, and then let's do this one too. Okay, so a little bit darker on the inside, and then it gets lighter towards the top. And I only need to put one color down. So when you use markers, remember you would start with a darker one here, then you would use your medium for the middle part, and then the lighter color for the tip. But we don't have to do this. We're just taking our pencil, we're putting in pretty much just the darkest area, and then we're filling in the rest with our water brush. Okay, and for the green we wait, so all I do again, take my water and make sure it's clean because we're using yellow. And then I'm just starting from the top, bottom, and I'm going up and moving the color along with it. And you go section by section, and what I like to do, I'm just going from one side to the other, give this side a little bit of time to dry. That way I make sure I'm not getting too much water in one spot, because that can happen still, and we don't want the whole thing to disintegrate. So here we go. I'm not even going all the way to the tip. Let's do this one here in the back. And let's go back to this side. And I'm just activating the colors here. And when you have the feeling that, oh, my color is not picking up or moving, then just get a little bit more water. Make sure you still use your paper towel and dab it off so you don't have too much color on here. And then we do the next one, and then this one. And it's really easy, and that's how I would leave it. There is white in between, if you can see this. So there's white I have to look here. I see it from the side, but I would leave it that way just to give it a little bit more interest. I don't want this to be all one color. So now let's do the buds here. And I would say start with the lighter colors first before you go into the darker ones, just so you get the feeling of the pencils and how they work. And yellow is very forgiving. And we go from the darkest one where we put the color down, like here, and move it up to the top. Because you activate the color down here on the bottom, and then you just move it up. And if you feel like, oh, I got too much color on it, just dab it off. So let's do this one. So again, we're going from the tip, from the bottom up. And you can see already how much color you pick up by going from the bottom to the top. And we do this one here. And all we want to do is remove those lines that we left, so you can see that there was a pencil we put on there. And I think this looks pretty good. If you see something that you don't like, you just, like I said, wait till it's dried and then go back in with a little bit of fresh water and move it along. Okay, so this is how quick and easy you can color in your flower. And then let's do the branch too. That was too much water. So the branch here, and it doesn't have to be exact, so I'm really just activating the colors here. And we do this one here a little bit. And there you have it. So there's part number one. Now for the green, as we said before, this one is a little bit tricky. And when you apply this, remember that it doesn't flow as well, so we want to give it just a light shading. And I might go a little bit more towards the tip too of each of those leaves, but with a very light hand, because I don't want this to be too harsh. So start a little bit dark down here and then get lighter to the top. So this one you might color in a little bit more like you normally would, but that's okay. And then we take our water and we do the same thing. We just try to move as much as we can, even so we know this one doesn't want to move so much, but it does a little. Okay, and when you look at it, you can see this one didn't move much, but you can see here that there's a little bit lighter shade, so it's not as eminent as it was here on the leaves, where you can really see the transition from dark to light. But I think it's okay. There's a little bit white in there, and I would be happy with this. So once this is dry and you figure, you know what, I still want those leaves to pop a little bit more. Since this is working relatively hard, what you can do is you can take so this is an almost dry brush, and you can go in here and you just pick up a tiny little bit of color and you add it to your leaf. But you have to be careful, because you have to give the pencil then time to dry, because the water will seep into that little lead part, and we need it to be completely dry before the next time you're using it for pencil you know, as a pencil to color in. So it's hard to see with these little ones. Here you can see that transition that was really not moving at all. So I pick up a little bit extra color, and can you see how you can add extra color this way too, to make this go away? It's still a little bit visible, but it gets better over time. But this is one way to correct something that didn't turn out as good as you wanted it to be. So let's let this dry, and I let this one dry too. So here we have some yellow ones. Let's try some pink ones. How about that? And in this case, I'm going to use two. So I'm going to use my Berry Burst, and I'm going to use the Flirty Flamingo. And let's do this open one here. So again, this one here is really on the dark side here underneath this petal. So we're going to put the dark Berry Burst here first. And then this one here is also dark. And again, there are all these lines. This is the back side. So when the light shines from the top, this is the back side of the petal. This is pretty much in the dark too. So we can go a little bit more crazy here with the dark color. And then we can put this down here because this is the back side. So it curves up a little bit. This is on the inside here. Again, very dark. This one is dark too. This one is a dark area. And then this petal here. So it's dark back here and underneath here. And then it lightens. This one here in the back, same thing. This one that comes out back here. There's another petal. And when you color this in, you also want to go with the lines. So in this case, I'm just, you know, flicking up my pen, my pencil here, going with the lines. I don't go against it because that makes it harder to move the color later too. So, okay, so always go with the lines here. And then I'm gonna take the pink, and I'm actually gonna put in a little bit right on top of the Berry Burst here, just a little bit. So like it has a little shadow here of the pink. And you don't have to do this everywhere, but I'm just giving it a little bit. Okay. And then we try one other version where, so I'm gonna put in a little bit of a pink on the top here. And again, I'm just going, you know, with the flow of the leaf. So this one's gonna be a little bit reversed. So we're gonna put the pink here, and then I'm gonna take the dark, and I leave this nice white spot in between. And while for the small leaves it will not make a difference because there's not much room to move, it will for the big ones. So let's see how this will turn out. Let's dip in the water, and we start with this one. So I'm starting from behind here, and again going from the darker to the lighter. And I'm just, and if you have too much water, you can just take your brush and take some of the water off. Okay, now we use the other side here, making sure our color is kind of mixing, and then we move it up. And you can see once you add the color, how the water, how the color really brightens up. See here, how all of a sudden it's nice and smooth, and it's just moving together. And that's what I like with these watercolor pencils. It's super easy to get shading done without having to do a lot of back and forth, and believe me, with the alcohol markers, sometimes it's like you start and you go over with another layer and another layer, and it's a lot of work. So this one goes quite easy on you. So here I didn't put much color in here on the top, but that's okay, because as you can see here, I just continue to pick up, or maybe this one has enough, and this one just gets a really light blush of color. So down here we're doing the same thing, and I'm not very careful. I'm not going over the edge of the printed image, but I'm also not going all the way to the edge sometimes, so it's really just picking up color and moving it around. And if there's a little bit white, I leave it. And I know this is hard for some in class. It's always the problem that people tend to color everything in, and this is just how we learned to color in the old days, and we still try to do it these days, but we want to leave a little bit of shading and white, and that's okay. So see here how this all of a sudden activates the color down in the bottom here, and we never did anything here, so let's put just a little bit of color there, just to give it a little tint. And there we have our next magnolia. So now let's try this one. And since I have the lighter color on top, the darker color here, I like to do the lighter one first, and we're going in the opposite direction, so from top to bottom, just the tip, and to smooth out the edge there and pull the color down. That's why I said with the shorter leaves it's hard to do. And then we make sure we're not too wet, and now we use the bottom color, and I try to stay inside those lines that the designer gave us. And activate just that deep purple that we had, and then you can always use a little bit more water and take the edge off if it's too harsh. But in nature, not everything is even colored either, so it is okay when there are different colors in here. And here we go. And it's all about practice, and you have plenty of samples in here to use, and to just go wild and try how this will work for you. You can pick your colors. You can later just take them out of the, cut them out and put them on a card or a layout. There are many ways to use this. Okay, so now this one has a little bit of an edge, and I do the same thing. I take my light pink and an almost dry brush. I just pick up a little bit of color and smoothen that edge out here that I don't like. And then again, I just let it rest. So here are two different samples. So here we had dark on the bottom and lighter on the top. This one we started with dark and had a little bit light on there, so they're all gonna be different. And let's do a little bit mix. So we never mixed the green and the blue, so let's create a little of a different green for the leaves on this magnolia here. So I'm gonna put on a little bit of the green, and again very light, because we know this is not moving so nicely. And then I'm just gonna come in with this one and put this one on the bottom here, just a little bit, because I know this flows pretty good. So we're just gonna do that. And then we have our brown. And again, I'm just gonna color in the bottom side, so I'm not doing the entire branch. Here we have the bottom of the flower, so that also is already given by the designer where it is darker. So I'm just gonna put the color there. I'm gonna pull the rest out when I use my brush. And I think here's a little one. I think we can leave it there. And if you wanted a little bit of a different brown for this one, you can place, as we did here. See, here we mixed the early espresso and the pumpkin together. I don't know if you can see. So in this one we mixed the pumpkin and the early espresso together. So I'm just gonna put this color right on top, and you will see this better when you're creating this at home. I'm just, like I said, looking from far here. And now we can use our water brush, and these two colors will actually flow together and giving us a little bit of a different brown shade. And you don't even have to blend them together, because the water will do this for you. So now let's do the green. This one I forgot, but see, so here we just do the green, and this one I forgot, so I'm just using whatever I have left on my brush from this one here. Okay, and here's another sample. So again, it's all about practice and working with different colors and just testing things out. If you wanted to do a 3-colored flower, we can do that too. So here we have the orange, the yellow, and the red. So let's try and do this. So I would start with the red on the bottom here, and maybe just a little bit, because the red is a very strong color and I don't want this to be too red. I just want a little bit red color here. So then that's what we are doing, just a little bit red. Next, I'm gonna take my orange, and I put the orange right on top. And that one could be a little bit higher. And when you color this in, I know this looks weird because not everything is colored in. So at the end, we're gonna use our yellow, and we pull this up a little bit more. But like you have seen earlier, so these colors, you can overlap them, so you can go over your orange with the yellow, they will mix nicely this way. Okay, this looks cool as it is. So let's see what comes out when we mix this all together. So, and again, I'm trying to go from one side to the other, give the one side a little chance to dry up. Oops, this one I went over the edge a little bit. That's okay. Okay. And here we can pull this. And like I said, when I feel I have too much color on there, I'm just dabbing it off, because sometimes some of the colors are stronger than others, and if I want it to be really light on the top, I'm just taking some of the color off. And let's do this one here. Since red is a very strong color, I didn't put a lot of the red on to begin with, so it doesn't overwhelm our shading process here. Okay. Now we have this one here. Oops, that was too, if you had too much color, you can always just, too much water, you just dab it off. And you can see how all these three colors blend together with ease, and gives you another option to use your watercolor pencils. And like I said, if you absolutely do not get this to work, or you don't like it, I mean, not everybody likes to paint, or you know, you use the water, if you don't, just use them as regular pencils. There's always that option. But I think once you try them, and it's really just you will make more progress when you practice, and it's not that hard. Just those little things that you have to learn and remember. But once you've done this a couple of times, it is really not that bad. And if you ever mess up one of these things completely, remember, you can always use the backside for testing purposes. So here we had one. I'm just gonna put in a little bit of the pink, and I think this one here looks really nice too. Let me get this quick. So here we have our three color combination, so that turned out pretty nice too. So as you can see, there are so many different ways to use these. I hope this little instruction helped you a little bit to get to know watercolor pencils and give this little box a try. I mean, this is a really nice set. You get 8 different colors. Excuse me. You already have the pre-printed images that you can color in. You get a water brush with it, and oops, some tickle. And if you're interested in using a couple more colors, this is a set that Stampin' Up has. These are, let me see, they're in the main catalog on page 118. Watercolor pencils assortment 1. They're $18, and you get a total of, how many are in here? 13 different colors. They are like the early espresso, the daffodil delight, and the pumpkin pie are also in this set, and they're in this set too. But other than that, they're all different colors. So there's a nice blue in there, and you can mix and match them as I showed you. So again, I hope this helped you to get started. If you have any questions, please comment me below, or if you would like to see another tutorial on this specific set, let me know as well. And in another video, I will show you how you can actually use your regular cardstock and stems and ink with these watercolor pencils to color in images. So thanks for watching. Please leave me a thumbs up if you like this video, and if you haven't already done so, I would love if you subscribe to my channel. Other than that, I will see you back here next week, and you have a great weekend. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.